And now I get one new work order. So I go back to my work order list. This is my work order list. So now I have a new work order here. You'll notice a couple of things about this work order. One, its status is at work order, meaning that I've just created it. We haven't done anything necessarily with it yet. And at this point, I can delete it. I can delete this work order. So if for some reason I decide I didn't really want to give this to vendor 1, I decided I want to give it to vendor 2, I could go in and click on the delete box here and click delete here, and it would remove the work order. It just delete it, and I could issue a new one. The measures would become available again, and I can issue a new one. So if you have to change your mind, you can do that. In this work order right here, you can open this work order up. Here's the detailed work order. It's got, the comment on it. It's got the measure on it. I can do two things basically with this work order at this point. I could print it with no cost. For example, if I just wanted to give this to the vendor, I wanted them to estimate what the cost was going to be. And what they'll get is they get the measure, they get any comment I placed on the measure itself. Remember, when I created this measure, I put the comment on the measure that said the oil panel instead of tank. I did that on purpose just so you can see that this was truly the comment I typed in on the measure. The oil tank is about to start leaking, so you see the measure comment. Then I see the work order comment telling the vendor where the thing is. So I can see all that, and since I said no cost, what I get is I get the measures and their quantity, but no cost associated with them. There's no dollar figures. Yes, ma'am?
For example, we have contractors that do our work for us.
Right.
So what vendor would I be giving that list to if they buy the supplies?
Right.
They let us know what they use or what they're going to use, what they've used on the house. Right.
So they're gonna tell you that. What you're gonna do is you're gonna give this list to the vendor of the measures you want them to execute. You're not giving them necessarily a list of materials. You're giving them a list of what you want them to do. So this is the work order of what you want the vendor to do.
So after the renovators do the assessment and tell me what needs to be done,
right,
I fill the work order out of what we want them to fix, and we give that to them.
That to them, and they will have the option. They fix it the way they want at that point. And that's why I was saying the things we put in here in terms of quantity, and that's why you may produce one without cost on it, is because you're not sure what they're going to actually do when they get on site.
Yeah.
You know, what the vendor is actually going to have to do, or what it's going to cost them when they get on site. So when we look at the other work order, I'm going to produce a second work order, and we'll see a little bit better maybe what I'm talking about. But this is what you give the vendor, you know, for them to do as work order. You can actually do something like create this work order and give it to multiple vendors without the cost, and use it as a bid sheet and say, okay, here's what I want done at this house. What are you going to charge me to do this? And give it to a couple of vendors, and when they give you, when you pick the vendor you want, what you can do is go ahead and redo reassign the bid to the vendor that you want to actually have it.
Is there any way to put a column in there for cost so that we can have? Okay.
So if I just kick no cost off, if I turn off no cost, see I had a little flag here that said don't put the cost on. If I tell it to print it with the cost or email it with the cost, then it actually has the cost.
No, on the blank one, if we're going to send it to several vendors and let them.
Oh, put in a blank cost?
So that there's some uniformity to it.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. I'll take that as a no. To be able to do a bid instead of just a work order. So you can either do a cost or no cost work order. And if the vendor has an email address associated with them, you can actually just email it to the vendor. And right now, the only vendor in here is vendor 1, and their email address happens to be mine. So if you mail it to me, I can show you what they look like.
I sent one.
Yes.
Another question.
I saw it.
I sent you one.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Once we print that off and give it to the vendor,
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to save it in the system.
It's saved in the system, right?
Okay, and what are they supposed to do with it? Do they need to sign off on it? Is it just something for them to keep?
Well, what they're supposed to do is when they do the work, they're supposed to give it back to you. And that's the next step we're going to go through.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm issuing this work order. So I printed this work order out and issued it. And now I want to go back and I want to add another new work order. And again, my job is still available because remember I only assigned the replacement of the oil tank. Now you'll notice when I bring the job up now, the oil tank doesn't show up. So you can't accidentally issue a work order twice. Because once a measure is on a work order, it won't show up as being able to be issued onto another work order. So you'll notice the replace oil tank doesn't show up here. This is all kind of insulation type stuff and kind of weather stripping stuff. So let's say normally I use my own internal crew for that. I won't use my own internal crew to do an oil tank replacement because of the hazardous waste and all the licensing points with it maybe. But all the stuff here maybe I do with my own crew. So I just add this to my my crew and save it. And again, I could put comments here and save this off. And I'll get a second work order for the same job. So now I have, the job appears twice. I have two outstanding work orders. And they're both at the work order level, meaning that I've just handed them out to someone. They haven't actually reported any installation activity yet. The next step, again, is if you go right down the list here, after job list, I list the jobs out, make sure the job is done. I go to work order, look at which jobs are available, issue the work order for the jobs that are available. And then I'm starting to get these work orders back from either my crew or my vendor. Then I'm going to want to go and declare their installation. I'm going to go to installation here. And I'll click on that. And what I'll see here is it'll normally put the open work orders right at the top for me because that's probably what I want to work with first. So I'll see the work orders that just are at work order status at the top. And then other work orders that are post-installation will appear at the bottom. They're already installed, they appear down below also. So I'm now doing installation. I'm now setting the install date. So now I'll go to the job for vendor 1, which was the oil tank replacement. I click on that job. And I have the option at this point to change the cost and quantities at installation. The idea here is the vendor is going to give you back your work order marked up with the actual installed quantities, the actual numbers, the actual things they install. So they might come back and say, you know, that was harder than we thought, and we're going to have to actually charge you $650. And I got to put a date in here. I got to change it over here. So this was the order cost, $500, what I thought it was going to cost. This is what the vendor comes back and says, because it was a difficult install, that it was $650. So I'm going to save that. I'm not going to save that yet, I'm sorry. I'm going to say that it was installed today. Now I'm going to save it, because I can't save it without an installation date. So now